Welcome back to the podcast.
So good to be with you, Nathan.
Excited to be back on.
This one's kind of different because it's happening the day of the sermon.
I know.
I'm still wearing what I preached.
I know. It's just going to match with the sermon.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we usually record on Mondays or Tuesdays.
That's right.
But I'm going on a work trip tomorrow, and I told you, hey, like the only time I can record is Sunday afternoon if that works for you. And you were so kind to be like, yes, I want the church to have a podcast still.
And you were so kind to give up time on a Sunday before a work trip. So thank you too.
I'm thrilled to be here. So we will see, though. It'll be interesting because I feel like you're going to be very fresh with your content.
I think I will be.
But I usually go home and like digest the sermon and kind of like have my first exposure to it, think about it. I've not thought about it at all. I've not like processed like my questions at all. And so we're just going to see how it goes.
I like it.
Yeah. It's like the wild card one. Also, it's a little windy outside.
Really
like
windy.
Actually not a little. It's very windy outside. So if there's a little bit of wind noise, that's what that is. No one's passing gas or anything. Like I just need to say that.
Gotta say that. Just someone's like, wow.
Gotta say it. So yeah, give us like a quick recap of the sermon.
Very fast recap. We are just in 6 verses, Nathan. Mm-hmm. We're breaking up chapter 7 into 3 different sermons because there's so much content in that chapter. Mm-hmm. We were looking today at the limitations of wisdom. Ecclesiastes teaches both the incredible value of wisdom as well as the limitations of wisdom. So if we wanted to put it ironically or tongue-in-cheek a little bit, we would say that our teacher showed us today that if you have wisdom, you will acknowledge the limitations of wisdom. And so we looked at that wisdom is limited and then 3 approaches essentially to dealing with that.
Yeah.
That when you come into questions that you cannot find answers for. The one that he presented is maybe the most well-known sort of question of why is it that righteous people sometimes die young and suffer in terrible ways? They die in pain, injustice, or something like that. And then why is it sometimes the wicked live in comfort to very old age?
Yeah.
In light of us not being able to find an answer to that, different ways of approaching how we deal with the limitations of wisdom. And the 3 things we looked at were the way of false wisdom, the way of the fool, and the way of true wisdom.
Yeah. I want to dig into, the first thing I want to dig into is you talked about how there's the person that lives for the moment and then there's the person that lives in the moment.
Yeah.
And you kind of distinguished that oftentimes we can try to be just getting as much as possible out of a moment, like as much joy and happiness and satisfaction. And I think that's an approach that a lot of people have realized has come up dry. Mm-hmm. And that used to kind of, I think, be like the pathway for like the college student, like the young dude that's going away to college. Like, I'm just going to live it up. But we're actually, I think, kind of transitioning into this new phase for young men, which is super exciting. But the pathway for Gen Z men now is that they're moving very quickly into Christianity, into this idea of being heavily disciplined, which is interesting. It's actually the first time in U.S. history that men in this age category are more interested in faith than women. Women are leaving the church quickly.
I've read that.
Men are moving into the church quickly. So what I see a lot of, though, is on like social media, you have a lot of content creators, a lot of reels that heavily put this emphasis on like a reel that I see all the time is like, how did we fall for this propaganda? And it's like drugs and alcohol and partying and like hookup culture and just like all of this like junk food, like all of this stuff. And then it like switches to like when like this is so much better and it's like marriage and like the church and like working out and eating healthy. And so it's cool to see people going that direction. But you kind of talked about like, okay, where does that discipline lead? Like, why are you pursuing that discipline? So can you kind of speak to that again? Because I think it's exciting where some of our culture is going. We're saying we're not going to just live in the moment anymore. But I'm curious, like, is this rooted in something good? And like in 15 years, will it come up dry for people if it's not rooted in the right thing? So can you talk about that a little bit?
I love that. I would love, and this is fun because I can do some nuancing for what I didn't take time to say in the sermon, didn't have time. And it's fun to slow down and discuss and receive your question. You know, Nathan, one thing I would say is it is true, brother, that when I talked about the distinction between living in the moment or living for the moment,
Yeah.
that was under the heading of point 3 on the way of the fool.
Yeah.
Is what we were talking about. So, of course, the emphasis I was giving to that point is we're called to live in the moment, but not for the moment. And in that context of the way of the fool, living for the moment is just amassing pleasure and comfort and essentially trying to soak all this shallow things, entertaining myself to death type thing, right? However, we could apply that same rubric of a failure to live in the moment versus for the moment in terms of discipline, the way of false wisdom. For example, if the moment right now is joy, enjoying friendship, doing something fun, just having a spontaneous moment of joy and stepping into God's good creation, living in the moment would mean I'm receiving that gift. Now, living for the moment could also be applied to discipline. A sense of, no, everything is about discipline. And everything is about this next step and what I'm doing. I guess what I'm saying is you could live for the moment with multiple motives, not just sort of a YOLO, you only live once, let's live it up. You could also live for the moment in the sense of you're still not living in the moment. You're not receiving what God is bringing. You're always turning it into some other thing you're trying to chase, But to your point of discipline, yes, I mentioned in the sermon, Nathan, that there are ways in which people think of Christianity where essentially, if you boil it down, they're doing self-discipline for the sake of self-discipline, essentially. They're doing discipline for the sake of discipline. I've heard one author, his last name is Whitney, I think, and I'm forgetting his first name. He wrote a great book called Praying the Bible. Donald Whitney. His name is Donald Whitney. I think he's the one who coined the phrase, discipline without direction is drudgery. Discipline without direction is drudgery. So discipline is not just something we do for the sake of doing, but in the gospel and through Jesus' teaching, we're practicing discipline toward the reward of heaven and God's presence and being blessed by the Lord and knowing Him and having a good conscience. There's several reasons why we're pursuing this discipline and this self-denial. And I think also one last thought on this, the danger of discipline becoming something that's good just in its own right. The problem is that it is much easier it's much harder, to ferret out the brokenness of that versus making like pleasure for the sake of pleasure. Because discipline for the sake of discipline looks good on the outside. It can bring success in all sorts of things.
Well, you talked about the nugget of truth that's in limited wisdom. So it's like, yes, if you don't go out and party every weekend, like you are going, like in this, like in your current season of life, you are going to feel better and be better. But like, where is that leading to?
Where's
like,
it going?
Like, why are you doing that? Is that leading you towards God or just like building up yourself?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. How do, I guess, in that question, because you said it's harder to figure out why we're doing it. And I find that in my own life all the time. Like I am doing these things that are good things, but then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this because I want to feel good about myself, or I want approval from my wife, or I want to be more successful in business, whatever it is. How can we, I guess, guard against that so we don't get so far down a track and then like wake up and realize that? Like, how can we be checking in like daily, weekly, like monthly on those things?
That's such a good question, Nathan. If I were to look at my own life and just very honestly assess my own journey with the Lord, if I applied that question to me, Nathan, how do I know when or if the discipline or self-denial I'm practicing is really out of love for God, fear of the Lord, worshiping Him and honoring Him as first? And then how do I know if maybe it's not that,
like, but it's just building up our own kingdom?
Yeah, building my own kingdom.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like that usually becomes clear when maybe a trouble shows up in your life, or you find your soul feeling kind of empty,
Yeah.
and you're praying, you're in the Word, you're asking the Lord for direction, and you begin to realize, maybe I'm not as close right now as I thought I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in my own experience, it almost seems like this is one of those reasons why the Lord is truly kind to allow adversities and trials in our life. Maybe that's where, the wisdom of James comes in, that we can thank God in every trial, because in those trials, he's perfecting us.
Yeah.
And perhaps it is those trials that wake us up a little bit to what our motive is and what it is that we're pursuing. Also, I could say this, man. If I don't realize it, but subconsciously or in my heart, I'm idolizing something other than the Lord, if when that thing starts to fall apart or gets threatened, if my discipline or self-denial goes out the door, right?
Yeah.
That is a good tell that
Yeah.
maybe I wasn't doing this just out of relationship with the Lord, but I was doing this for my career. But now that my career's not taking off like I thought, what's the point of all this discipline? Or I was doing this for my marriage, but now that it seems like my spouse is never going to change or our marriage can't get fixed, I guess I won't do these things anymore.
Yeah.
That's probably another good way to find out what's the reason why we're doing something. But once again, that's still trials helping us see the truth.
Yeah. Which once again, it's like, I feel like our whole life oftentimes it's like we're just trying to avoid trials. But then it's like the trials are what bring us closer to God. But then also, how do you not live in this like self-deprecating place where you're like, I just need trials all the time? I guess that's when you just trust the Lord, just to like bring them at the right time. Okay, you mentioned in the sermon that oftentimes we're looking for this like next life hack. Like if we can just like find this next thing that we can do, it's going to get rid of all of our problems. And I wonder how much of that is like ties into legalism, I guess. Like that we want to earn some sort of like standing before God, that if we can just find like the right like way to pray, or if we can just like find the right routine. Can you talk about that, like the link between legalism and always maybe searching for like the next kind of like hack, and like how that relates?
I love that. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were discussing together how much of growth in Christianity is like anything else. It requires lots of consistency. There's quite a bit of just boring realities to it.
Yeah.
That can be hard to accept. So for example, if someone's trying to stay on a diet, I mean, the reason why there's been so many books written about making dieting easier or trying to boil it down to just one thing you do is we so desperately want to believe that it's that simple.
Yeah.
Or working out.
Yeah.
Or learning new character habits, or you name it. There's so many things we could list right now, Nathan, that we all just know that to grow in those things just takes a lot of time and consistency and doing the same thing over and over and over. I think growth in the Lord, growth in wisdom is the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So these life hacks, I think sometimes there can be this temptation. Man, if I could just hear that one sermon that just unlocks it for me.
Yeah.
If there could just be that one worship song that plays and I'm singing the lyrics and it's, I feel God, and it just unlocks it all for me.
Yeah.
Or I read a book and it gives me a paradigm I've never seen, and I am just off into a new direction. There's this desire, and so authors know this, and these things sell. That's why I mentioned some of those books, the magic of tidying up and the 4-hour work week and things that we would read and say, gosh, how do I get this? How do I adopt this
like
one
this is
thing?
The next thing.
And it just transforms my whole
But it starts
life.
to become like we have to adopt so many things. It's like we have to adopt everything in every book.
If you have 20 next things, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh my heavens.
Yeah.
So I think so much of it is just consistency. If I'm wanting to grow in the Lord, I need to be in church
Yeah.
as many times as I can on Sundays, and I need to read my Bible regularly and try to have a functional prayer life, even when I'm not sure what to pray or trying to find time to pray, and should be confessing my sin,
Yeah.
talking to brothers and sisters in the faith, being relationally connected with other Christians. I mean, just these very normal things that we
Yeah.
just consistently do. This is what we're called to. However, to the point of today's sermon, even if you do all those consistent things, it doesn't mean you ever find a wisdom
Yeah.
that answers all your questions
Yeah.
or frees you from having to wrestle with
Yeah.
things with the Lord that
Yeah.
don't seem to make sense. That there is no formula to get that.
Yeah.
And so I just love that, right? I love that the Bible, it really, in a way, not in a way, fully, it makes me feel more confident in the Word.
Mm-hmm.
That the Bible would simultaneously say, this is the truth, this is the Word of God,
Yeah.
this is going to give you everything you need to have a relationship with the Lord. And at the same time, this is limited.
Yeah.
It's not a codex. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a magical decryptor
Mm-hmm.
that if I just read the verses the right way and study it, that I can understand all the current events in the world, or I can make sense of all the hard things in my life, or make sense of my whole past. That there are still questions that are unanswered. And I look at that and say, that is a winsome argument to me for the validity of
Yeah.
the Bible.
Yeah. I think also that desire is what drives us down, like drives people down these paths of following just false teachers, or teachers that maybe they're not even preaching something that's false, but they're adding on to it. Because it's like, okay, we have the Bible and we know like that's like when we need to follow the Bible, but then like this person has found all these extra things to add on. That's like, man, like if you just do this, this, and this, you're going to understand like the current events of the time. You're going to know exactly how to handle them. You're going to be able to know how to have like the right type of family. Like you're going to know how to like raise your kids, to not stray away from the faith. Like you're going to know all these things. And I think like kind of what you're leaning into is like to fully believe the Bible is to know that there's things that like are just unanswerable.
Yes.
Like you could not have answers this side of heaven. And if you start to go down those paths of like, man, that looks really appealing because this guy, like he just talks about all this stuff. We like can know the answers to all these things. It's like, that's going to lead you down a path that you don't want to go, because it's going to eventually, like, you're going to become more consumed with that stuff than what the Bible actually has to say.
Amen.
Because this is like everything that this guy is talking about is locked and closed, and there is no questions, and you don't have to think about like how to process these things or wrestle with these nuances. And so you're going to be more and more drawn to that.
So true.
Yeah. Something else you mentioned too, about we're looking for like the next exciting like sermon that's going to like change everything for us, or the next Bible study. Jen Wilkin, I heard this on, she used to do like a podcast with like some people from the Village Church. I used to listen to it.
Cool.
It was like JT English and like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if they even do that still, but I used to listen to it like back in like 2020. But something she mentioned on there one time that's stuck with me with just like doing spiritual disciplines is you're like, we shouldn't be approaching spiritual disciplines as like, let's get our dose for the day. We should be thinking about it like, I need to like pull something out to like consume. We should think about it as like putting in like a credit into our bank account. Like just each day, like we're just going to faithfully show up. We may not get anything out. We might not get anything out for like a year. Like we're just going to pray. We're just going to read. And then like the hard time is going to come. And then that's when God's going to like allow us to pull out this wisdom, because we're going to be have like been walking closely with him. And so, yeah, there's a lot of days where it's like, I don't want to read, but it's like, man, like I'm just going to faithfully pursue.
That's so good.
See what happens. And I don't read enough. So there's that. But
yeah. I love too, dude, about the discipline thing. You know, that way of real wisdom. It's so winsome to me to imagine growing simultaneously in self-control and joy.
Yeah.
That vision of the one who fears the Lord will grasp the one without letting the other slip from their hand.
Yeah.
That's just so winsome to me, Nathan. This
Yeah.
idea of, if I think of the closest relationships to me, which would be my wife and my children, I just think, man, it captures my heart to be a dad who is just self-disciplined,
Yeah.
practice self-denial, is regimented, and has good habits in all the right ways.
Yeah.
And yet that my children don't experience me as a man with sharp corners.
Yeah.
Who's inflexible, who, runs the house like a military boot camp, but there's not much warmth. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I want to be joyful. I want to be have free, spontaneous expressions of just enjoying and laughing and having a good time, but that not make the household just feel like a chaotic. It's just that idea of pulling together self-control with joy, that so captures my heart for the kind of man I want to be.
You're talking about that in the sermon, and I was thinking a lot about that. Like, man, like how often does my discipline lead me to not be like a joyful person to be around? Like, we got to like get this all done. But then also sometimes it's like, let's just live in the moment. Let's just have fun. And then it's like, where's the discipline?
Where's the structure?
I definitely tend towards like the structure side when it comes to like family. And I was thinking about you because I've told patients this before. And so hopefully this isn't like weird because I'm going to like brag on you for a minute. But like you're probably one of the few people I know that balance just like this like intense joy all the time, but also this intense discipline all the time. And even to like I've told her patients before, like, I think Ryan could tell me like I'm wrong about anything, or like, no, we're not going to like if I have like an idea for like something with the church, you're gonna be like, no, that's like a bad idea, but just be like so joyful about it. Like I just walk away feeling good. Like, it's like, no, that's like such a crappy idea, Nathan. But like, I just love your heart for like ministry. I just love your like I would feel so good. And so you balance that really well. And so, I'm not trying to make this like a brag on Ryan session at all. But in the sermon, I was just thinking about like, okay, how do you do that? And like, how do you emulate that? Can you maybe speak to that?
Yeah.
Since like, I feel like that's a strength of yours.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That really means a lot.
Yeah.
I come from a friend, that means a lot. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I do not always embody that. I mean, my wife could tell you seasons when ministry was heavy and I came home and I wasn't a joyful person to be around. And there's been seasons that I've lacked discipline and lacked self-control and not practiced godly self-denial. So it's a gift, for you to, it's a gift that the Lord has shown that through my life to make an impact on you. That means a lot, Nathan. Gosh, how do I do it? Being 41 years old now, being married for like 20 years and boys all getting older and pastoring this same church for, 15 years now or whatever it's been. I just think there's something about just staying. Just staying where the Lord has you and just learning to attune your eyes and your mind to just see things that give you gratitude and pleasure and thankfulness, you know? C.S. Lewis put it one time, which I loved. He said, he's impacted me a lot.
Yeah.
They called him the romantic rationalist. So romantic as in seeing beauty in things, and rationalist as in mathematically, logically working through things. But he talked about when you travel somewhere, you find beauty everywhere, because there's a new place. You travel somewhere, you look at the landscapes, the mountains, the plains, the rivers, whatever. They're just all so beautiful to you because you've seen them for the first time. And then he talks about the difference between going out to your own garden that's behind your house every day. And you have to really look closely at what's there and to notice it and to find something else that really gives you some gratitude or joy about it, And I think a lot of that too is just a gift from God, honestly. Like I would just say I think Ashley and I's practice of giving of our time, giving of our money, like really believing, not always, Nathan, perfectly and not always faithfully. Yeah. But we really have committed ourselves in lots of ways to put the kingdom of God first. Yeah. And all these things will be added to you. And I do think just some of the joy that I experience at home, the fun that I have with my boys, the laughter. We do a lot of laughing at our house. And we joke and laugh at the dining room table, and at nighttime, bedtime, we laugh and hang out at nighttime. I just think a lot of that's just a gift from God. Just his kindness to our family. And maybe it's part of a spiritual gifting I have. Maybe it's him blessing me. I don't know. I don't know how I would put words to that exactly, but I want to continue growing to be a man that can marry those things together
Yeah.
in all the spaces I live in. Like I don't ever want to settle to say, I think I'm far enough. I want to keep just like growing in this the best I can.
Yeah. I liked that you brought up like seek you first the kingdom of God and the rest will be added. Because it is like the rest does fall into place. And I know for myself, I get so stressed about like, okay, how do I try to like put this all together? How do I try to make our life work? How do I put all the pieces in the right order where we can like do it all? And it really is that simple. So
Yeah.
the romantic rationalist is also good. Like, I love that. Like, there's those people that like romanticize life and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a little too romantic.
Yeah. A little too rose colored glasses there.
Yeah. Like we need to like bring it down.
Yeah.
But then the people that like rationalize everything, it's like, ooh, like this is not like a fun person.
This
to be
is
around.
too black and white.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's all of the questions for today.
That's great.
Just nice and succinct. But yeah, thanks for being on the podcast today.
It's been excellent, Nathan. Thank
Yeah.
you, brother.